My name is Kevin Street. I'm a person with lived experience of problematic heroin use, 4 decades to be factual. Actually, I want to acknowledge that not all drug use is problematic, but mine was, and it was based in PTSD. Ironically, my first experience of heroin use was whilst I was in custody on remand. A fellow inmate gave me some heroin to try, and it just changed my whole perspective. Not only did it deaden any physical pain that I may have had, but it actually deadened the emotional pain that I was suffering. I was eventually released from jail after being found not guilty after trial. I continued to use heroin for the next 10 years or so. And because of that, I found myself back in custody. I used that short period of time in custody. It was only 14 months. I used that to get some qualifications by going to TAFE. I volunteered at the Royal Botanic Gardens, and from that I turned that into a full-time public service position. I worked there for about 5 years. I'd been abstinent from heroin use. I'm not going to say that I didn't have a beer or anything, but heroin was my issue. That job at the Gardens allowed me to actually change my life dramatically. I'd re-established a good relationship with my ex-partner. I had a wonderful relationship with my son, who'd seen me in and out of custody at times. Things were going very well. Life was so rosy. Because of what was going on in my life, or actually inside my head, I relapsed back into heroin use and continued to use for about a year whilst working at the Gardens. I wanted to ask for help, but I felt that I'd let everybody down by slipping back into drug use, which was a criminal offence and still is, by the way. There was a stigma associated with going back into drug use, and I just really felt that I'd let everybody down, and I'm putting that down to the stigma associated with drug use. The only option that I felt that was available to me was to leave that job and just work on building sites as a roustabout or as a brickies labourer and stuff. I came clean to my family that I'd relapsed back into opiate use, and they were very, very disappointed. Not so much disappointed that the fact that I'd relapsed, but they were disappointed in the fact that it took me a year to tell them. It caused a breakdown in the friendships and the relationships with my ex and my son. I continued to use for another 10 years, and I consider this to be actually a lucky stroke. I found myself as a client of the medically supervised injection centre in King's Cross. It had been running for about 5 years before I decided to become a client. I had around 2,500 visits to inject there, and one day I thought I need to change what was going on in my life, so I approached one of the nurses and asked if they could help me get into treatment. Well, I spoke to the right nurse because they made some appointments for me. They followed up those appointments for me. I managed to get into treatment with a sublingual Buvidal. I'd been on that for about 6 months. I wasn't happy about going to a clinic every day. I'm not a person that can stand in line well. And I read an article about a subcutaneous injection of Buvidal, which is just basically buprenorphine, and it allowed me to go in once a month. And basically, it's been a game changer for me. I've been in treatment now for 5 years. I don't intend to come off it very soon. It's working for me, and I'm quite happy. I just really want to stress that it was the stigma around the fact that my drug use, which I saw as medicating PTSD, because I grew up in the child welfare institutions, and I think everybody knows what went on in those places and stuff. Heroin just enabled me to deaden all that emotional pain that it was having. It quietened down the voices that were in my head. Luckily now I'm in treatment for my opiate addiction, but I'm also in treatment for my PTSD and childhood issues. 4 years ago, I come to the realization that if I was honest and open about my drug use, I was honest and open about why I was actually using heroin, that I was honest and open about the fact that I'm in care. Well, I call it care. It's basically counselling for my childhood my childhood issues. The penny dropped for me when I walked into the building here in Pitt Street, and as a person of lived experience, I was sent here because I wanted to volunteer. I felt I had a lot to give. What really attracted me to this campaign and to these particular people was that they were open and accepting of me. I think the most surprising thing that happened to me is they actually gave me a pass that allowed me access to certain floors of the building. Um, Ironically, it's my most treasured possession, and I feel that I have a lot to offer because I have been there and done that, so to speak. I'd like to offer my experiences to other people, um, whether they continue to use drugs or they want to keep using drugs or they want to go the abstinence route or they want to go down the treatment route. I don't mind. I like to meet people where they are at, and if I can be of any assistance to a fellow human being by utilising my experiences as a drug addict. Um, I don't like to use that definition, but it's the only one I have. Then so be it. I will not turn anyone away that comes to me asking for help. My voice is one of many. I like to use my story. It's my personal story. I can't speak for other people, but if I add my voice to the collective voices that are around, hopefully we will see some change in our drug laws.